Welcome to the Andy Social Podcast. This is my show. My name's Andy Dowling. How you doing? Hope you're well. That's good. Fantastic. If you didn't know already, I play bass in the Australian metal band Lord. And if you love a bit of that old school heavy metal, you know, like lots of guitar solos and sing-alongs, a bit of cheese here and there, you know, yummy, yummy. You can go to lord.net.au. We've got all of our video clips there, our whole back catalogue, streaming music, Spotify playlists. We've got blogs from all the guys in the band. We've got a merch store. You can go and buy a t-shirt and a CD. It's all there. So if you are curious and you just want a little bit of a taste of what we're all about, go to lord.net.au. It's a fantastic website, if I do say so myself. I didn't make it, but you know, I'm a little bit biased when I say it. But go to lord.net.au and go and check that out. In addition to playing in a heavy metal band, I also host the Self-Starter podcast, which is all about small business, self-employment, and freelancing. So no matter what your story is, you could be stuck in your cubicle and you want to escape the corporate world and do your own thing, or maybe you just want to get a bit of extra coin, a bit of pocket money on the side, or maybe you're just about to start or launch your new business, or you've been in the self-employment world for a long time. You guys get the drill. Go to selfstarter.com.au. You can search for Self-Starter in the podcast player you're listening to right now. It's going gangbusters. I don't even know what that word means really, but I just said it. So there you go. It's going really well. So thank you so much to the Andy Social faithful that have been supporting that, spreading the word, talking about it. It means a hell of a lot. And it's great to see that podcast really becoming something of its own. And I'm stoked. Cheers, guys. Now, this week's shout out. If you're new to the podcast, each and every week I thank somebody that supports me, someone that's just doing great things for me, supporting the band, supporting either of the podcasts, me personally, and it doesn't matter what it is. It could be just this really positive message of encouragement. It could be a guest recommendation. It could be buying some merch. It could be shouting me a beer via the PayPal button over at andysocial.net. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it keeps me going, it keeps me fueled, keeps me motivated, and just means a hell of a lot to me. So each week I thank somebody, I put them on public record, and I send out a little care pack, a little bit of fun for somebody in the post, because we all like getting something in the post. So this week's shout out is for an old friend, another old friend, Mark Fitzsimmons from Canberra. Now, the name might ring a bell for some of you guys. Mark has been on the podcast previously, episode 90. Mark is a chef and a extremely enthusiastic metalhead, one of the most diehard, loyal metalheads out there. He is at all the shows in Sydney and Canberra. He's been a big supporter of metal for so many years, and we had a fantastic chat in episode 90 in Canberra. We sat out the front of a pub in the middle of July when it was freezing in Canberra, and we had a couple of beers and shot the shit, and it was just a really great chat. And one of the nicest guys and most supportive guys out there from a musician standpoint and just from a mate point of view. He's just a really, really nice guy. So thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it. Go and check out episode 90. You can hear all about Mark's story. Just such a top guy. I can't say enough about him. The reason why Mark is getting a shout out this week is that not too long ago, he bought a patch plus the bundle pack over on the Andy Social online store, and the bundle pack is the t-shirt and the USB pass, which has got the first 100 episodes. Spit it out, Andy. Fuck. The first 100 episodes of the podcast. So he bought the patch and the bundle pack. Super cool. Just blown away that you use your hard-earned dollars to grab a little bit of Andy Social fun. So thank you so much, Mark. Shoot me a message and I'm going to send out some more goodies to you in the post, because as I said before, we all like getting something in the post. So cheers, Mark. Really appreciate the support. Episode 90. Go and check it out, folks. This week's episode is with Adam Ballinger. Adam is a pro basketball player, now retired, played almost 15 years, or roughly 15 years in the NBL. He was born and bred in Indiana in the US of A, and did his college basketball stint over there, and not long after finishing college came to Australia and played in the NBL here. He played for the Victoria Giants, the Wollongong Hawks, the Adelaide 36ers, and the Melbourne Tigers, and just a really, really cool guy. And you guys know me. For people that have been listening to the podcast for a while or know me personally, I am a big basketball fan. I grew up in sort of this really amazing time for the NBL and the NBA in the mid-90s, and just a lot of great memories of just being totally obsessed with basketball in general. And even for me, at one point, I was completely delusional and thought that maybe one day I could play in the NBA myself. Unfortunately, I kind of forgot that I was this short little fat kid. But nonetheless, I was pretty passionate and really, really excited about basketball. And even to this day, I still really, really love the league in the US as well as here. And the NBL is bigger than it ever has been. So if you haven't been to an NBL game yet, please do so. I digress. But the reason why Adam is on this podcast, yes, because of the basketball stuff, and I'm definitely attracted to that. And I love to talk to as many people from the NBL as possible because I just love it so much. But Adam's point of difference, something that's really unique about him, is he's also an artist. He's an illustrator, and he does this amazing artwork, which I found just by accident on Twitter, of all places. It might have been somebody else that retweeted his art, but he does this sort of style caricature art where a lot of it's sort of 90s NBA players, that sort of nostalgic period, which is really cool and stirs up a lot of memories. But he also does a lot of people from pop culture, a lot of other sporting personalities as well, and it's just really, really cool art. And I just thought, why not? Let's have a chat to Adam. Let's talk basketball. Let's talk his art and just see what he's up to these days. And he's just a super cool guy, really, really nice guy who is now retired and still loves the game, loves basketball, and is trying to blend it all together and also follow this passion of just creating art as well. If you want to check out Adam's art, you can go to adamballingerart.com. I'll put all the links in the show notes over at andysocial.net. He has 3 e-commerce platforms at the moment through, I think it's Big Cartel, Etsy, and Threadless. So he sells his prints, he also sells stickers, and then he sells apparel like t-shirts, water bottles, bags, all sorts of stuff. So lots and lots of cool stuff. And I'll put some pictures in the show notes over at andysocial.net as well, because he's got this amazing series of artwork that he's done that you can get t-shirts of, and I've got to get some. But there's like 90s guards, 90s forwards, 90s centers from the NBA, and it's just this collage of all these amazing larger-than-life characters from the 90s of the NBA. So it's really, really cool. So enough of me, andysocial.net. Go and check it all out, or adamballingerart.com, and you can scroll into the show notes on your podcast player. You should be able to click on all the links anyway. But enough of me. As always, please enjoy this really, really cool chat with Adam Ballinger.
Long story is, and when it started was, it's always been a passion of mine, but because basketball was my A1 passion, like that was, that's all I really cared about for a long time in my life. And I was lucky enough to be pretty good and be pretty tall too. That always helps. And I'm from Indiana, back in the States, which is like basketball haven. Like that's all you do. And high school basketball is like the biggest thing there is. And so I was surrounded by it, and that's all I wanted to do. But my mom was very creative. She was an art teacher in our high school, and she does nothing but art, like all types of stuff. She's got her hand in everything. So I was always around it, and it was always something I was interested in. And then, that was from a small town. Culturally isn't, it's a great place to grow up, but you're not getting, culturally, there's not too much different than what you're seeing every day. It's not there's street art or anything like that around. So I went to college at Michigan State, and I remember seeing a few, things of graffiti around, and just kind of taking that all in and just becoming really interested in that type of art, that street art and graffiti and stuff like that, and finding other out. Like back then, Tower Records, and remember Tower Records, but they had a magazine section. I found, oh geez, there's a graffiti magazine, so I dove straight into that and just going into that. And so it's always been something on the side that I was really interested in. And then as basketball came to an end, I was able to play till I was 35 professionally, which was great, but unfortunately you have to stop at some point. And then, there's always that question that hangs over every athlete's head is, what are you going to do when you're done? And my answer was always, I don't know, which isn't good when you're 35 and you got 3 kids who are depending on you. So when I retired, I coached a little bit, and I was kind of struggling to find something. But I've always drawn, and especially since I've retired, I've really dove straight into that, and turned what work ethic I was putting into basketball into my art and illustration, and it's paid off. It's it's slowly growing, and I'm learning a lot of things. Like everything I'm doing is, just learn one thing and move on to the next. But I'm really pretty kind of happy with where it's at, and I would never would have thought it'd be like this, 3, 4 years ago. I would have told you were crazy.
It's I mean, I love all the small business type of stuff, and so I've got a big fascination in people that just create something out of nothing, and especially if someone's got some raw talent as well to sprinkle over the top of it. The possibilities are endless, and like looking at the way that you've got everything set up, and you've got, the artwork itself that you can purchase. You've got another platform, I think it's Threadless, where you can get all the artwork on different bits of apparel. Then you've got Etsy as well with all your stickers on there, and then obviously Big Cartel's got your artwork. And so it's really cool to see how it's all set up, and then how you're putting it out there. And Twitter's like one of those crazy places where anybody, like the most unlikely of people, are going to come across your stuff. And what really drew me to the artwork that you're doing is this throwback, this like love of 90s NBA players. And suddenly for me, it was like this nostalgic sort of throwback where I'm like, oh my God, I remember like being in primary school and just worshipping these gods in the NBA and seeing these great pieces of artwork. And I mean, with Twitter, have you seen that, this artwork that you've been doing of a lot of these players has reached these people?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter, especially Instagram and Twitter, are basically the only. I mean, I've got a website, which is nothing really, and like I said, those shops that you can go to purchase some stuff. But mostly, it's all off Twitter and Instagram. But Twitter, especially, like you're right, potentially anybody can see it because stuff gets shared around so easily, and somebody can stumble on it. And it's been really good for me. I think. Because you said, like, there's that nostalgic factor. So if somebody runs across one of my things, it's a random 90s NBA player, but they recognize it and, and give it a retweet or give it anything. And then it travels that way really, really well, which has been great for me. Social media was not anything I was interested in at all. I was actually actively against it while I was playing and didn't have any need for it. I'm old enough to where, you kind of that grumpy old man is like, oh, you don't need that stuff. But it's been the only reason my stuff's gotten out there, and the only reason I have made any kind of career off what I'm doing now. But you're right, like Twitter especially is just, and the networking that you can do from it, and people you can meet, and just end up talking to who are kind of like-minded people has been great for me, because I really have no network outside of, everything I've done has always been basketball. So, illustration wise in that creative world, I've got I've met a couple people now, but I had nowhere to turn, so social media has kind of been everything to me.
It's that public platform. I mean, anyone can have a sticky beak and look and see what somebody's doing without actually going up to that person and asking a bunch of questions. So it's a great way. It's, I agree with what you were saying before, where, when you're actually playing basketball, you're sort of a bit opposed to it. And, obviously your mind and everything else is elsewhere anyway. So you've got to put your focus in the right spots. But there is that scary element of putting yourself out there publicly for criticism on all sorts of levels. But that's the wonder of this social media sort of concept, is that you can put your work out there and anybody can see it and just stumble across it, or have a sticky beak without you even knowing. And down the track, then somebody reaches out, or somebody that you've actually drawn a picture of might even reach out. It's just this weird world online that opens up so many opportunities.
Yeah, you're right. And you kind of put yourself out there, like you're saying, and it's out there for criticism and stuff, but I found you can kind of use it for whatever way you want to. I don't get involved in much, on Twitter. Like, you can really go down rabbit holes and be pretty negative, and there's a lot of people talk about the negativity from it, but I've only really experienced a positive side of it. And I try to, I got a lot of opinions on on everyday matters and stuff, but I don't put that out there. It's an art. I'm out there to promote my art, and then for the most part, that's all I'm doing. If you're an artist and if you're a writer or something like that, and half your stuff is about how you hate Trump, that's not what people want to see. That's not what the reason they're following you is to see your art. And I try to stick to that and always kind of remain positive and not get into any of that other kind of stuff. But it's been good for me, I'm sure. And hopefully I'll get bigger, and then hopefully I'll have a lot more enemies, but that'll be a good thing.
Oh, definitely. And no doubt you probably, as you said before, learning as you go with this completely different world of, creating your own business from art, from having such a long history of just being totally immersed in the basketball world. For me, like being an Aussie, but being this stumpy, fat, white kid in the 90s that thought that I was either my favorite players were Kevin Johnson or Larry Johnson. And so I just thought that I was either one of them, but, didn't look or didn't play anything like them. But, I had a taste or an understanding a little bit of what it was like in the States with basketball, and just understanding the cities and the players and the teams, and even just understanding just a little bit of what I guess the college sort of lifestyle was like as well with basketball. Um, it's just a completely different world to no doubt what you've been experiencing over the last few years of you just trying to create that initiative and work out what works and what doesn't from a business point of view.
Yeah, it's you miss. I definitely miss playing the game of basketball, but everybody says what you really miss is the people you're around, and the locker room, and the being with like-minded individuals who are all there for the same reason. And you miss that camaraderie for sure. It is tough. I mean, it's tough to do something your whole life and then one day just stop and try and figure out something else. It takes an adjustment by everyone, your kids and your wife who've been used to the same thing. And now it's you're living a totally different life. And, but I love doing this. And even though it's for right now, like if I sound like I know what I'm doing, it's a lot. I'm just going piece to piece. I'm going, just project to project, trying to figure out things on the way. And it's working so far. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of hours alone, in an office or in my house, around the kids. I get up and make sure I get plenty of like 3 or 4 hours in before they wake up, so I can get them off to school and then all that kind of stuff. So you just, it is what it is. It's relative. Everybody's got things they don't like about what they do and things that they like. But I can't stop doing it. So I know it's what I want to do.
And what you said earlier as well, using that same sort of work ethic that you had in basketball into what you do now. So it's, if you can draw those parallels where you understood like a lot of like the game time was so minimal in comparison to all the prep work and the training and learning the game and improving yourself as a player and working with different, coaches and players and that sort of team setting. There's so much preparation work that's involved versus actually playing the game. So no doubt you could probably draw some parallels into what you're doing now with that discipline.
Yeah, no, I mean, work ethic is a great way to put it. And, and especially in creative pursuits, I'm really get a lot of inspiration and stuff from, art, music artists or anything like that, where there's no set game plan of how you're going to get to making a career out of it. You can't just go to school and come out and you're a successful artist. It's the same way with sports too. It's like you can put the work in, but you don't know how you're going to get there. You just know the work. Hopefully your hard work will take you there. And that's the same thing. Like I found, I don't even really I'm getting a website made now. And you say, I sell some t-shirts and stuff like that, but like, I don't even have business cards. I don't know anything about what I'm doing other than the biggest way you can help yourself is just putting in the work. Like 95% of this is just sitting down and cranking out work that you're passionate about and that you feel good about. But the other 5% is like trying to get, the website and everything down and a business plan and all that. But for me, I've just found hard work it will get you there eventually.
Just got to play the long game.
Yeah, like a delayed gratification.
That's the one.
Yeah.
For sure. Talking about talent and obviously working on skills and getting better, in whatever you're doing. I mean, you mentioned before about, you had the height as an advantage as a kid and growing up in Indiana, but, what were your skills like growing up and playing basketball? Was it something that you had a natural talent for, or did you just sort of use the height to your advantage and then build the skills afterwards? I mean, what was that like, early stages of playing basketball?
I can remember always being pretty good. It was just a natural thing for me. My dad played in college, and we all, played all kinds of sports when we were kids. And I just remember basketball. I can remember my first game and the feeling of that. And I was always pretty good, so I had some natural ability for sure. but then I became, when I say obsessed with it, I mean, I was pretty obsessed with it. It was kind of the only thing I cared about, and focused on. And it's taken me a lot of places. But yeah, so, you got to have that mixture. You got a mixture of skill and, and hard work. But I for sure had in my mind too, somehow, for some reason, basketball was what made sense to me. But no, it's a good mix, I would say.
Was there anybody that you worshipped as a kid, like from a basketball point of view, like, all those throwback players? Was there anybody or a team or something that you sort of really idolized or looked up to as a developing player?
Yeah. Well, so if I'm from Indiana, so Larry Bird is like the god of Indiana basketball. Like, well, he's a basketball god all over the world, but he's 6'9", I'm 6'9", both from small towns in Indiana. He was way better than me. But to have someone like that, is like, oh, if he could do it, I can do it, kind of thing. But my small town, it was high school basketball was huge, and you kind of looked up to those guys who were playing in seniors and juniors and stuff like that. I guess that would be year 11 and year 12 here. The guys who were doing it there, so more on a local level, you looked up to them and the coaches and stuff. And my dad, he also played, so. You kind of had two levels of it. You want to be like those guys who are just living down the street from you, but also NBA guys. But my favorite team was the Knicks. You like the Knicks in the 90s? Cool. Yeah, the Knicks, so like Patrick Ewing and those tough dudes. Guys. Yeah, for sure.
Anthony Mason, I used to hate that guy when I was a kid. I was so terrified of him, and between him and Charles Oakley,
Oakley,
oh, dude, and being a little fat white kid from Queensland, just idolizing so many players, but looking at those guys and going, oh man, like I'm just from another world. Those guys are huge.
You definitely know your stuff. Yeah, but that was back when basketball now is probably a lot more fun to watch. But back then it was just like they're just beating the hell out of each other every night. But yeah, nostalgically, it was a great time for basketball.
Definitely, so many storylines, and I think just the way there was a bit more mystery behind everything because you didn't have the internet and social media. You like, at least for me, like my whole diet of NBA was reading whatever the basketball magazines were at the time, or getting the trading card Beckett's, or you go and get a VHS of like dazzling dunks and basketball bloopers or something like that. And and that's all you had. And so it was like, and then we were like, I mean, especially in Australia, you watch like the reruns late at night on TV. You'd never really see a live game or anything like that. And it was just such a faraway land and just this mysterious place that had all these larger than life characters, and it was just so cool. And yeah, right now, like the NBA and NBL has probably never been more exciting from a theatrics point of view, and just the intensity and the pace of the game. But there was just something, I mean, maybe it's just like anything in life, the longer time passes, the more nostalgic you feel about certain things in a period of your time. But it was something different about that particular era, which was just so cool.
Yeah, you're right. Especially over here, I've heard people talk about how hard it was to get information on the NBA, whereas now you can get. There's probably too much. It's all kinds. But yeah, you're right. I think there's something to that. Like, these guys are just, they're celebrities. Or I don't know. Now they still are. But back then it was like superhero kind of stuff. Like
it's the same as music as well. Like it's. Like musicians, you look at all the big sort of rock stars of the 80s and the 90s, and these larger than life characters that had this element of mystery. And now everybody's got a Twitter account, everybody's got Facebook and Instagram, and you see a bit more of their day-to-day life, which is really cool in some ways, but in other ways it sort of takes that glitter off it, where it's sort of like, oh, they're not that different to me in particular ways. Or sometimes you see their flaws, or if they're getting opinionated on certain things, and you go, oh, my heart's broken, I can't believe they think that. Stringing a sentence together about something in particular, like, oh, dude, just shut up. Like,
there's no mystery behind it. Yeah, you're right. Like, we have guys you don't want to see behind the mask. Like, Oh geez, but in 2000, I was into like Slipknot, something like that. Those
Yeah.
guys behind the mask. But once you see the guys behind the mask, they're just normal dudes from Iowa. Like they're just, you know what I mean. But before that, it's like these are, who knows us behind there? These guys are demons from another world.
That's it. Absolutely. You mentioned before about, people that you're looking up to, and Larry Bird obviously being a huge person, especially in that part of the world. But you mentioned like high school and college guys. One thing that is so foreign still here in Australia compared to the US is the way that high school sport and college sport is just like on another level compared to the equivalent here in Australia. We don't have leagues in that sense. We don't have a culture around putting athletes on such a pedestal as what North America does with their sport, and especially dudes that guys and girls at such a young age. I mean, what was it a bit like that? I mean, I don't know where exactly in Indiana you were, but being a big basketball area, was it sort of that larger than life aspect even for the high school and the college guys as well?
Yeah, for college for sure. I went to Michigan State. That was a school of like 40,000, and the basketball program there was huge. Right? It just really started taking off when I went there, not because of me, but it was just the timing. So we won like a national championship in 2000, and went to Final Fours and stuff like that. Wow. And yeah, you're kind of everybody knows you, that's for sure, and you can. Yeah, I mean they call you student athletes, but it's really you're an athlete first and student second, because of how much you've got to put into the program and how I guess celebrity would be one place, but I guess you kind of are around the campus. But it comes with a ton of work. Like you see the students who are you go to school for like 5 hours a day. Other than that, you're just like drinking beer and eating pizza. It's a trade-off for sure, but it is. I mean. Here it's not the same system. So the system is through clubs and stuff here. And I think there's pros and cons to both systems. I don't know if one's necessarily better than the other, but it's kind of on a person to person basis on what is better. But I mean, both ways, if you're a good player and if people will find you, you know what I mean? Like if you're a good player here, you're probably getting to the right club. And if you're a good player over there, somebody will find you. Some school will find you and try to develop what you can do.
Did you struggle at all when you're at Michigan State with that sort of level of attention on you? Like, was that something that you'd slowly sort of gotten used to as a progressive sort of thing over time, or was it sort of just a deer in headlights sort of experience where you've gone, oh geez, I've got to step up. I've got to try and adjust to this really quickly.
I mean, yeah, for me it was tougher. I wasn't like a huge recruit, so I wasn't told that I was going to be amazing since the day I was born or anything like that. But you go there and I just wanted to fit in to start out with. I was probably different. When I say I was obsessed with basketball, I was like, I didn't do anything extracurricular wise to jeopardize anything that was going to help me in basketball. So I mean, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything like that at all. So that made it easier for me because I just kind of focused, I was always at the gym or, just hanging out. I wasn't getting in any trouble or anything like that, but it can be overwhelming for sure when you go in and your eyes are opened up to people are always trying to give you stuff and invite you here. And, you kind of, that's when it can really hurt you. But, yeah, I was kind of maniacal in the other way.
I know that it might have been like the LeBron James documentary from years ago when he was going through college, and there was I might be getting people mixed up, but there was a bit of scandal, and I know that it's been talked about quite a bit about sponsorships and people taking money from external places from a college system. Did you have any of those types of experiences where, as you said before, like temptation, and obviously there's other types of temptation out there, but did you get temptation from external people, or was there that sort of stuff that you had to be really sort of conscious of being a player in that sort of setting?
No, I didn't personally. I think recruiters knew. First of all, I don't think I was that big of a recruit. I mean, a lot of schools wanted me, but it was kind of not the level of where people are trying to do illegal things to get you there. I was just kind of, I was going to pick a school, and I think anyone that trying to recruit me kind of knew that, he's going to come to whatever he likes, and nothing extra is going to get him there. But though that happens, I mean, it happens a lot more now, I think. but it's more like it's the 1% of guys, it's the 2% of best players. Other than that, it's pretty, they're offering you a scholarship, they're paying for your school, and most people are happy with that. Most people can't get anything extra, but if you're gonna be banking millions 3 or 4 years down the road, or even 1 year down the road, there'd be people all over you. And I saw a lot of that. Like no one doing anything illegal, but I went to school with a lot of guys that played in the NBA and knew people were going to be making them a ton of money, and it was tough for them. Like they had people all over them all the time, and they didn't necessarily want it.
I can't even begin to imagine what the type of pressure that people would go through, like in that transition, and in the grand scheme of things, like everyone's so young, and just trying to work out life in general and how to adult, be an adult and just do adult things, and then have this extra pressure on top of being in such a unique setting of being an athlete and a developing athlete, and then the prospect of just earning a ridiculous sum of money. It's just so much going on. And I mean, you see those horror stories, especially from once again, going back to the 90s, of like some of these amazing players that have just, the reputation and the stories of them just blowing millions of dollars, and then just, being tempted by all sorts of different things along the way and just having nothing to show for it. But I can't even begin to imagine what sort of pressure that would be.
Yeah. No. Well, guys now have been much smarter about their money, it seems like now, and handling their business and staying out of trouble. Whereas you're right, in the 90s, it was kind of, got a little crazy. I think, like you're talking about social media and everyone being under a microscope at all times, I think it's changed that maybe for the better in that way, because, you can't, everyone knows what you're doing all the time, but, it's tough. And like, especially college, big time college basketball or college football is a lot of pressure. I mean, it's you're playing in front of huge crowds, and there's so much money involved, and you're not getting any of the money, but it's a big business, and the coaches are big names. And but you're right, no one necessarily teaches, especially if you go for a year and you go out and then you're offered millions of dollars. No one's taught you how to spend it. Everyone thinks it's going to last forever, and it doesn't. But guys now, I think they've learned a lot from those, the guys in the 90s who are now bankrupt. And I think the NBA actually has them come in and talk to players coming in and like, this is what I did, this is what not to do, and they're a lot smarter about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw a couple of years ago, there was a couple of things online, documentaries about like the next class of rookies coming through, and they all had to go through like this mandatory sort of coaching sessions of how to deal with your inner circle, your friends and your family, or your new friends that come along from years gone by, or people that have just come out of thin air, and how to deal with the money and all that sort of stuff. And it was quite interesting because obviously people learn from their mistakes, and even I guess the league themselves being as big as they are, there's probably a lot of risk there, having people that are reckless with their own personal decisions, because obviously it impacts the league and the teams financially as well if the player goes off the rails. So it's good that the education's there and people have got a bit more guidance, but it's not as interesting from a spectator point of view when you don't see so many people crash and burn.
Yeah. The stories aren't as funny if everybody's doing the right thing. It's not. Yeah, I hear you for sure. Like Allen Iverson was great to watch, and because like he could be such a train wreck off the court, but they kept you entertained.
Oh, absolutely. And that sort of fed a lot of that mystery and those storylines and everything that just made the league so fascinating to watch from the outside looking in. It was just so cool. What was your experience like trying to get into the NBA?
For me, it was, it was always a goal. It's a goal for, everyone who plays basketball. But, I don't know how close I was. I had a really good junior year. So, and then my senior year, I didn't have as good a year, statistically, personally, as I was kind of predicted to and should have. That hurt, because I would have been fringe, like way on the fringe. To make a team would have been huge. So even if I had the best year I could have, it probably may not have happened. But so I didn't really get a look in after that. but I still wanted to play. I was like, that didn't discourage me that much. I just said, I want to play basketball. I don't care where it is. I want a chance to play. And then I got a call. I had an agent who had some ties here in Australia. And he said, I got you a job in Melbourne. And I said, all right. I didn't know anything about Melbourne. I didn't know anything about how much money they were giving me or anything like that. I just said, okay, I'm going. And it's all worked out. I got over here, and it's an unbelievable place to live. They had me in St. Kilda, off Fitzroy Street in St. Kilda,
yeah, wow.
right in the thick of things. Yeah. And it was, the team, we weren't that good, but, the teammates and the culture out here fit me perfectly. And I met my wife 2 months after being out here. And now I'm a citizen with 3 kids and still living in Melbourne.
That's, did you, when you got that call from your agent and he threw this proposal at you to go to the arse end of the world, I guess in your mind, did you think, okay, well, I'll go down there for a season, I'll have a short space of time, and just think that it's just going to be a like in the grand scheme of things, a quick experience, and then transition back to North America or go to Europe or something like that? Did you have sort of like a plan of what you were hoping to do after sort of the NBA initial prospects didn't work out?
Yeah, I didn't have a plan. Plan is not something I'm good at, planning anything. So I just thought, I'll go play for a year, like you said, and see where that takes me. But I've got so much family and friends back in Indiana. I didn't ever imagine not living there, at least close. But I knew I was going to go wherever basketball took me. I didn't really care where it was. But yeah, I just go out there and play for a year, for a season, and see where that goes. And I didn't even really know where it was. I remember looking at a map a few days before I flew out just to actually see where Melbourne was, in Australia. I just show up and I'll just play basketball. That's what I'm there to do. So, it's all worked out great.
Did you have any culture shocks or any difficult adjustments when you came down here initially?
Not culture shocks. I've been other places. Like I played a little bit in Turkey and Israel, even Puerto Rico and New Zealand a little bit, but culture shock wise, no. I mean, the accent's a little different. It took me a little time to get used to that, and just the slight differences. But for the most part, it was easy. If coming from Indiana, it was this is much more culturally diverse and kind of a great place to be in that respects.
Yeah, I think I grew up in Queensland. I think it's probably similar to Indiana in a way, as far as how diverse the culture is. Yeah, and I mean, so I think the first team that you played for when you came down here was that the Victoria Giants? Yeah,
they were Victoria Giants. They were only around for a couple of years. Yeah, back then, especially, there was teams coming in and out of the league. It was struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it was sort of at the end of sort of that big boost from the NBA in the 90s. And I think, because I don't know what time the lockout was, but I think the lockout in the NBA was sort of at the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s. And I think it just hurt basketball globally.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. I mean, I think Jordan retiring, I think that hurt it a little bit. And the NBL switched seasons. It switched from, I've heard a number of different theories. I think it just got a little bit lazy in promoting itself, but now it's picked itself right back up. It's those last few years. I know they're spending a lot of money on promoting the league and stuff, but it really has picked itself back up.
Did when you started off in the NBL here, did you still, because I don't know how all this works behind the scenes, and I'm always interested in a little bit of the mechanics behind it, because you mentioned you got a call from an agent that you used in the States. Did you still always hold on to that agent back in North America, or did you get an agent when you're in Australia, or were you completely independent and just working directly with the league and the club? Like, how does that work?
No, you can't. It's probably it's probably a good idea to be your own agent. I mean, maybe not. I don't know, because you don't have as many contacts and stuff. But if you wanted to put work into it, it would be a good idea to be your own agent, because they take a certain amount of what you make. But I mean, I didn't have contacts. I wasn't interested in doing any of that. So the agent that got me over here, once I got here, I couldn't I couldn't reach him. I
Oh,
could try to call him a few times. I couldn't. He wouldn't get back to me. And then I had 40 points in a game, and he called me right away. Then, and so a couple weeks after that, I just said I'm going to go a different way, and got another agent, and had a couple. I had one or two more after that, but then I found one that I stuck with for. He was mine for the last 10 years or so. But yeah, it's kind of, it's that thing like, if you're the best of the best, your agent's going to he'll be all over you at all times. But, a lot of those guys have people that they just get one job and make a little bit of money and then move on. So when you find someone good, you kind of try and stick with them.
yeah, definitely. And because you've played with a few teams over the years in the NBL, as far as signing with a new team, was that sort of the role of your agent to sort of negotiate and go through that and find those opportunities for you?
Yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, so it's their job to call and try to get you as much money as they can, but try to get you in a good situation and all that. And they have ends with the league, and they know who to talk to. So where there might be a job opening up, and or at least that's what a good agent's supposed to do. I'm sure there's plenty of bad ones out there.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. It's exactly the same in the music industry as well, where they've got artist management, and then you've got sort of booking agents and things like that. And it's I don't think it's even as regulated as what the sporting industry is. So it's it's a little bit more the Wild West, and you just don't know what you're gonna get. Yeah. What was it like moving around the country? Because I know you were only with the Giants for a short space of time, and then I think from off the top of my head, you went to Wollongong, and I think you also did Adelaide and back in Melbourne as well. Meeting your wife not long after you moved to Australia, how did that all work in that dynamic? And obviously, building a family over time. What was that like getting around the country? Did you relocate, or did you just stay out there for the season and base yourself out of Melbourne? What did that look like?
No, we always relocated, so it wasn't hard at all when we didn't have kids or anything. Wollongong is a great place to live, so we were there for 3 years, and after that, Adelaide, which is another good place to be. But once we started having kids, it got harder. So we were in Adelaide for 5 years. That was probably my peak of my career. That was a great time. But so we had our daughter then when we were there. No, we had her in Wollongong and moved. I don't know. So we had her. And then 3 weeks after she was born, I left to go play in Puerto Rico for 3 months. I know. And then 3 weeks after I left, my wife flew across the country with our newborn daughter alone to meet me in Puerto Rico, which is like a 30-hour trip. Yeah. And it was, I know. That's when it gets hard. So when you start taking into consideration that kind of stuff. But we've always been, she's great with it. We've always just that's just part of the gig. But as I got older and the kids started going to school, and then when you move, you got to think of all that, relocating that. It just got, I probably could have played another year or two, but I just thought, no, I don't want to move around anymore. It's too much it's not fair on them. So, we just stopped doing it. But yeah, it's just part of it. If you're going to play basketball or sport, or even, in music too, I'm sure you got to kind of go where the work is.
Definitely. And no doubt, I'm just having a guess here, but the Puerto Rico stint was probably an off season for the NBL.
Yeah. So a lot of guys go play in the off season. That was one of them. I did Israel too, and New Zealand, but it was, they have kind of a shorter, different league there. We played there for a little bit, it was neat. It was different though. Like it was, not nearly as organized as the NBL is.
No doubt, you'd probably learn a lot of good things and a lot of probably things not to do when you go to these different countries or to these different leagues that are just not at the same level.
Yeah, you got to adjust. You're there. You know why they brought you there, so you just try and do what play the way you always do, and then hopefully, everyone else falls into place, or hopefully you fit into the team. But it doesn't always work that way. A lot of guys get cut, get cut from teams, and that's just part of it too. You got to go on to the next team and try to fit in there. But a lot of times it's not even your fault. Just don't fit in. So you move on. But you got to kind of have a thick skin. I'm sure in music it's the same way.
No, definitely. And just being around different people in general. So everyone's got a common interest, and in your case, it's playing the game. But you're going to have people from different backgrounds, different upbringings, culturally different, but then just personalities are just off the charts depending on what their background is. And so dealing with ego and all sorts of stuff, and especially this male dominated setting where it's just all dudes around all the time and everyone sort of claiming their space, it definitely would be challenging at times.
Yeah, it's definitely like the locker room, and especially it's so competitive because everybody wants, there's a lot of guys who would give anything to play professional basketball. And there's a guy at all times, there's a guy behind you who's willing to take less money to step into your spot. So while there's the team dynamic, it can get hairy a little bit sometimes when, jobs are on the line and guys don't get along necessarily. And it's a very competitive environment for sure, very male competitive environment. And so, I like the locker room itself can be great, but you're right. It's also kind of someplace you don't want to be sometimes.
What sort of approach did you take to deal with some of this stuff over the years?
I just, you got to take care of your own business, especially as an import. So an import is someone from, like in the NBL, usually they're Americans, but they can be from around the world. Someone who's not Australian who comes in and is on the team. You kind of have to watch after yourself. You got to make sure you're playing well. You got to make sure you don't want to, you got to have decent stats because you're not just playing to get great stats, but you got to keep that in mind. Like you got to keep in mind that you're there to perform. And, if the team's losing, you're not very good and stuff like that. You've still got to give the team a reason to have you around. But the other thing that comes is just being a good guy, just being, not a problem to be around at all. Like if you're demanding things or you're late to practice or you're not getting along well with the coach, you're just being difficult to be around generally. It's much easier to get rid of you. But if you're a good guy and there's no problems outside of basketball, you have a longer rope as far as if you have a bad game, they're not going to get rid of you the next day because they like you. So that, just kind of fitting in and not having too much of an ego, but taking care of your own business too.
That chemistry element is so underrated, where the chemistry of not only playing on the court but like just the chemistry of you interacting with the coach and the wider team and the trainers and the organization. It's critical to ensure that you're going to stick around.
Yeah, and that's why I like being here so much. It's there's not a whole lot of egos, especially in the NBL. It's a lot of like college as far as like after the game, everybody wants to go out and have a beer and hang out. Whereas like the NBA or when the guys are when there's a lot more and more money involved, it's a lot of stories of just no one hangs out after the games or before the games. It's just you're there, you show up, then you leave after the season. Everyone leaves and you never see a lot of people again. But here it's a lot different. It's guys want to win, but they want to have a good time, and that's part of it.
Yeah, sometimes we're known to be laid back, and sometimes a little bit too laid back for our own good. But there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
You played basketball for at least sort of professionally for I don't know about 15 odd years, but you're also a big dude. Like, especially in comparison to me, I'm pushing 5'7", so I wouldn't do. I'd have to be
average height, isn't it? 5'7's average height.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got no idea, but I would have been hopefully a half decent point guard at the very most. But playing for so long and having a larger frame as well, and it's people don't really realize, because especially in Australia, you always associate contact sport with rugby and things that are just blatantly in your face, being very contact. But to play basketball, it is a high contact sport. Did that take a toll on your body?
In a way, yeah. I was lucky. Most guys, especially in basketball, they got bad knees, but the longer they play, your knees can get really bad. My knees have always been great. I have no problem with them now at all. Ankles were a problem in my back, but nothing. I was pretty lucky. I played for a long time, relatively healthy. I didn't miss many games for a long time. but physically, yeah, I mean, it is a physical game, especially here because rugby and footy are such big sports, and it's in the culture. So like, you could just really you could before they cleaned it up a couple of years ago, you could beat the hell out of guys on a basketball court, and they wouldn't call it because culturally that's kind of what everybody's used to. That helped me out because like I said, I'm bigger, but I'm not as fast. So if I can bang into somebody pretty hard, that helps me. But yeah, I mean, you got to have the recovery and all that. But it's, I was watching that rugby grand final last night, and those guys, man, they must be so sore the next day after a game. I don't know how they do it. It's nothing like that.
Well, I guess that, I mean, yeah, once again, I guess in comparison, people would look at something like basketball, especially in Australia, because I mean, it's probably stronger now than it's ever been, even in the 90s. And the 90s had a great spike here in Australia, but I think now, like with the coverage that it's got and the support that it's got, it's far more mainstream, and I think people respect the game a lot more. But I think there's still that stigma attached to it, where we're a country that's sort of been born and bred on that contact sport at that level, that anything else just it doesn't even register. And but now that you mention it, and I'm thinking about watching games over the years in the NBL, there's been so many Australian players that have just been notorious for just getting into fights and pushing the limits with other players on the court. And and that would be where it stems from. A lot of these guys have probably played rugby league or rugby union or AFL when they're growing up, and that's just part of that culture.
Yeah, it is. I mean, right now, I mean, I don't know, there might be 10 Australians in the NBA right now, and some of them are still trying to make a team. But I mean, that's incredible. I mean, for the country, and it's not even the top sport, and there's 24, 25 million people here. Yeah, there's more other than America. The NBA has let's see, how am I going to put this? Australia has the most players in the NBA other than America, which is incredible.
Yeah, oh yeah, per like population.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then you think about the guys that have made a career over there. They're all been from our point of view, guys with big personalities, big egos, and people that will throw their weight around. And I guess that's probably what's helped them stay over there for a period of time as well, because they've been able to sort of face up against a culture and a league that is just so dominating and so intense and with so much pressure from all sorts of different angles for different reasons. And to have these Aussies come over there and throw their weight around, it's certainly helped them.
Yeah, I mean, it's even college-wise. So there's a lot of basketball players from here who are getting scholarships to go play. And and if you never play after that, you still got an education, and you had your school. You went to school for free, got to play basketball, and you got a diploma out of it. And a lot of them seek, because of the Australians who have come over and done so well. It's coaches and programs are seeking more Australians because they know what they're going to get. And it's snowballing a little bit, but it is neat to see. I mean, Ben Simmons he has a chance to be the next Magic Johnson. He's Australian.
Yeah, it's crazy, absolutely crazy, and it's definitely helping with the sport in this country, and I think the opportunities that the NBL has now has been as a result of the success of these guys getting a foot in the door over in the NBA and in the college system over there. It's just, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few years, because I think with all the new sort of TV contracts and all that sort of stuff that's happening here, it should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's it just spurns on more players and the generation of players. Yeah, but they've done it. It's been through a lot of work. Like the guy who bought the league, he owns Melbourne United, but then he also owns most of the league, and he's got money to put into it. But he knows that you got to put money into. You can't. He's not trying to cheap his way out of it. So they're really promoting the league, but they're doing it the right way, because it's not like there's no product to promote. There's product's always been there. It's just trying to get in front of people's eyes and trying to get people to believe that it's on par with the rest of the world, which it really is.
Yeah, definitely. Just going back to what you said before about playing in this league and playing against, Australians here, was there anybody, I mean, it doesn't even have to be, it could be another import that you played against, but who was notoriously like one of the hardest people to play against, or someone that just really got under your skin here in the league?
Oh, there's been plenty of them, but
Well,
the hardest
top
guy
10.
in the NBL, the toughest guy I had to guard was Chris Anstey. Chris Anstey is, he's about 7'2", and he could shoot threes, and he could kind of do it all at that height. He played in the NBA for a few years, but then he also played in Russia for a long time. Then he came back here to play, and he was, he was just like he's too big and too skilled to do much with. But I had a lot of great battles with Mark Worthington is another one, and Sean Redditch is another one. But when I was in Adelaide, playing Perth was always a big deal. Those were great games. Always so hot too, like 40, 45 degrees. And you're trying to grab a basketball, and everybody's, Perth basically just fouled you as much as they could because they knew the ref couldn't call every foul. Especially playing over there, and they got the Red Army, and a lot of good memories and a lot of things that that I won't forget. A lot of moments that you'll never forget.
Yeah, I think even around your time, there was just so many legendary players that were still sort of playing or at the tail end of their careers around that time. I mean, I think when you were in Adelaide, you were playing with Brett Maher as well for a bit. Yeah.
I played with him for 3 years or 2 years. Not sure the last couple of years of his career, but yeah, he was awesome. He's a legend for sure. And he's an Adelaide boy who grew up and played there, played in 2 Olympics. And, just to be around him and see how he carried himself and, to be a part of his last game was really neat. And, for sure. He's a legend.
It's I'm on a total nostalgic trip right now. I think I'm going to have to just sit at home today and watch some old school NBL videos and just I was actually going through some boxes of stuff the other day. Actually, this ties in really well because you put up a drawing several weeks back of Rex Chapman, and and then you said I replied to it, and then you said something like, "Oh, are you a fan?" And so I ran to the shed, and I'm going through all of my cards, because I've just kept everything from the 90s.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and I pulled out all the Rex Chapman cards, but what I also found was all of my NBL cards, and there's just so much stuff there from the 90s of these players that are just absolutely legendary. And I was lucky to get Leroy Loggins on the podcast last year. And I've been slowly chipping away to find people that were sort of around in that era and talk to them, because it's just such a trip to be able to just connect with people that were those larger than life characters. And it's just so cool. And I think for you as well to be in that era and be part of that, where a lot of these guys were around and playing, it's so cool to see and just to hear some of that stuff.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. Like it was up to me, like I did those 90s, I did 50 90s NBA players, which was just kind of a goal I set myself to kind of have, somewhere to go with my art, to when don't have something else to work on, is something else that I could just work towards. And I'm going to eventually do a big print of them all, but it wouldn't just be sports. I've got a lot of other interests, and I love lowbrow art and stuff like that. But it is neat when, those players kind of see the art and they you connect with them. For that guards, I just did a 90s guards t-shirt. And I had the 3 of the guards on the t-shirt bought a t-shirt.
That's so cool.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh man.
Also because technically, I don't know. It's a gray area, but technically I'm not allowed to use their likeness to make money off of, but no one seems to care yet.
Well, plead ignorance. Just keep doing what you're doing, sure. And when it happens, it happens. But I think most people understand now that if someone is going to put the effort in to praise somebody else, and if they're making something off it, I think it's almost an afterthought, because I think the fact that people are getting recognized and respected in that light is pretty cool. And it's not a case where you take a photo of somebody and then just reprint it a million times. I mean, you've got to put a lot of creative effort into what you do, and it's not an easy process. And so I think people just, at least from my point of view anyway, I think people appreciate the efforts and the creativity that's being put into it, and I think everything else is not really thought about.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it does. It's not it's a long process to be able to do, but I think you're right. If someone can see that creatively you put a lot into it and you're kind of representing it in the right way, they don't really care. I mean, I wouldn't care. So it's not like I'm making millions of dollars either. If I was making millions of dollars, I would have a lot of people on me, but I'm not. So I figure when I get a cease and desist letter, then I'll know I've made it.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Frame it. Frame it.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap it up, there's a couple of things I wanted, because I forgot to mention them earlier on. But I think it's on your Etsy page, you've got all your stickers on there. And one of the things in like the cover photo on your page, it just stood out like a sore thumb straight away, is you've got a design that you did of Bryant Reeves, Big Country.
Oh yeah, Big Country. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but like the other day I saw an article that popped up. It might have been on Twitter or Facebook, and there's a documentary about Big Country. Have you seen that article where they've got a documentary about him?
I've talked to the person who's made it. She got in touch with me a long time ago because she saw some of my art, and I think she asked if I had anything I could send her, which I didn't at the time. And she asked for that art, the original art, which would have been cool to send her, but I had already sold it. But yeah, so I've known about that for a while, and it's out now. It looks awesome, but we can't watch it yet. But eventually, as she said, the news is coming soon on how people from like other countries can watch it, because those are those kind of players are the ones I especially like to draw. Like, it's no fun to draw good looking players, like good looking guys or girls. Like, that's no fun to draw because there's nothing weird about it. But like somebody like Big Country, some big farm boy white guy, 7'2", who was such a phenomenon for such a short amount of time. It's so fun to draw. But then also, that's the kind of stuff, especially on Twitter, that can get sent around so quickly because someone will see it and connect with it, and it's kind of a neat thing for that day or for that moment. Those are the more fun things to do. That real niche type of stuff I like to do.
Well, I think especially like the style of art that you do, it's that art sort of lends to really sort of focusing on people's traits, like that what they look like, and exaggerating certain features of them, and I think that's what sort of makes it really sort of comical and lighthearted and really fun to look at. And for you to pick like these players that for a large percentage of people out there that may have followed basketball in the past but have probably forgotten about these people, and then just to see this pop up somewhere just randomly, I think that's what sparks a lot of interest from people, because it's this, if you just saw one of Michael Jordan all the time, which is fine, but it's sort of like, oh yeah, that's cool, it's Michael Jordan, of course. But then when you see somebody that you just it hasn't even been in your mind for probably 20 years.
Yeah, you haven't thought about it forever.
And then suddenly it's like, wow. And once again, it's that nostalgic trip, and it's just so cool. And when I saw that artwork on your Etsy page, I just thought, oh, that's so cool, because that I literally, like, the other day just saw that article pop up about the documentary, which I should say, because I keep forgetting that there's people listening as well to this. I'll put a link in the show notes, because it's all about tracking him down, because apparently he just went missing, like, as in, just went off the radar and went back to, I guess, normal life in quotes. But people have had a really hard time understanding what he did after he left the league, and so it looks really, really cool. It looks like a really fun documentary, and I think even in the articles that I've read over the last couple of days, they don't allude to the fact of whether they actually track him down or not, which is kind of cool. So
I don't know.
See what happens.
He probably doesn't want to be tracked down. That's why he has it. So he probably doesn't think it's so cool, but everybody else is like, I definitely want to see it.
Oh, the poor guy. Now there's like millions of people now that are just on the hunt for him. And if he's living in some tiny little town, because I think he's from Oklahoma or something like that.
Yeah, he's from Oklahoma. I mean, he had a couple good years, but then he was kind of, I think Vancouver signed him to a big contract, and he got injured, then he got fat, and then he wasn't any good anymore. He just kind of disappeared. But I think he disappeared because he just didn't want anybody to know where he was, and now everybody's looking for him.
Oh, that's it. And if he's living in some tiny little town somewhere back in Oklahoma, it won't take long until the locals are sort of going, hey, I saw you online.
Yeah, he's probably not online.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very, very true. Well, yeah, I'll put a link so people can have a sticky beak at that as well. But I guess that's just one of those many storylines, which is just so cool from sort of that era of basketball, and especially sort of going back into the late 90s as well, which is just really, really cool. And and fun to talk about now. But I mean, apart from all the art that you're doing now, is there anything else sort of, I guess, from a basketball point of view that you're dabbling in? Or, I mean, obviously that's been your passion for so many years. Is it something that you're sort of looking for other opportunities? Are you involved in anything at the moment?
Yeah, I'd love to be like creatively involved. I'm hopefully, down the road maybe with the NBL or something like that. But also, I've done a lot of coaching. I coached. I worked at a basketball club for a couple of years after I retired, and so it's been about a year since I've done that, or a year and a few months, and I lose track of time. But I'm starting back coaching again down here, like skills coaching, and I've got two sons who are just starting to get into it, and so I'll be around basketball quite a bit now. I'd much rather be playing, but the only way I can get around it now is to coach, so that's what I'll be doing now.
Thank you so much. There was so much fun to talk to somebody that's lived and breathed it for so many years and was so close to so much of that and part of that action for so many years. The 10-year-old me is absolutely stoked that he's had this conversation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that chat with Adam. If you want to reach out to him or have a bit of a sticky beak at his artwork, you can go to adamballingerart.com, or, as always, you can go to the show notes over at andysocial.net. Click in the show notes for this episode, and I'll have links to all of his pages on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'll have his 3 online stores there, being Big Cartel, Etsy, and Threadless. And I'll put a bunch of pictures in there as well, some basketball stuff, some artwork, heaps and heaps of stuff. As always, all the guests that have been on this podcast get their show notes page, and it's a great way to learn more about the guests and also opportunities to support them further as well. So make sure you go and check that out over in the show notes over at andysocial.net. Now, for any Lord fans, we have one more show for 2018. We are playing Saturday, November 3rd at the Ballface Stag in Sydney. We are headlining day 2 of the Steel Assassins Festival. So if you want to come along and have a beer and watch me prance around on stage being a heavy metal warrior, you can grab tickets from lord.net.au or andysocial.net. Almost had a mind blank. Or you can go to moshtix.com.au and grab a ticket there. If you need a hand, shoot me a message and I will flick the direct links over to you. New album's coming soon. Still no announcement. Maybe there's an announcement by the time this comes out. Who knows? But at this stage, still pending. It's coming. It's coming, guys. It's coming. Now, before we wrap it up, as always, self-starter as well, I should say. Thank you so much to everybody that's supporting. It's going really, really well. And please continue to pass that podcast around to anybody that's frustrated in their job, anybody that wants to earn a little bit of extra pocket money, or somebody that's about to launch their own business or is having a bit of trouble in the early stages of their new venture, their new business. This is a great reference tool. It's a great opportunity to learn from other people candidly, their own challenges, their own stories. And I've learned a lot myself from running that podcast. So selfstarter.com.au, a great way to learn more about just being self-employed, I guess. That's a great way of explaining, Andy. Well done. All right, and before we wrap it up, as always, you can support me in a whole range of different ways, rating and reviewing, all that bullshit. You can do a bit of social media love, tagging, retweeting, liking, commenting, all that sort of stuff. You can buy merchandise from the andysocial.net website. You can shout me a beer via the PayPal button over at andysocial.net. You can buy some Lord merch from lord.net.au. How many plugs can I do, guys? Far out. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up right now. Thank you so much. Another fantastic guest. And I'm really looking forward to next week. I have some really, really cool guests coming up, some great conversations, and I'm really looking forward to sharing them all with you. And I've got to think of a tagline before I wrap these things up. I used to say, take care. I don't know. Let's work it out. Get social? Ooh.